Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be kind of a short video. It's not a full review because unfortunately you just can't get these guns anymore. It's just a fact of life. They're rather old, and the fact that I found one, I'm really pleased. I'm very excited, and it's something I've been looking for quite some time, especially in this kind of amazing condition I looked at and found it in. This is an ICS M4, one of their really rather old models. This is probably about 12 years old is when this particular one was made, give or take. This is the PCR-97. I found this at Norwest Airsoft. He was able to get one in an interesting sort of trade. I think this was actually from a police station from quite a few years ago. I think they bought them, and apparently they were never used for training, so they just sat for 12-ish years, 10-ish years, somewhere in there, and were never used. So this is a practically brand new ICS M4 from about 12 years ago. And what I've been looking for is this amazing kind of Parkerized-ish finish gray body. You just don't see these anymore, and I'm really thrilled to check this out today. These ICS M4s are really hard to find nowadays. I talked to the owner of Norwest, and he was saying that he'd had like 4 of these come in recently, and I'm like, really? Wow. Because I look on HopUp every great once in a while, I'll see one. They tend to be fairly expensive, and they've had work done to them, and I'm like, I want something as close to stock new as I can get. So this is about as good as it's ever going to get, probably. I see these on eBay every great once in a while, and they're kind of in the same condition. People want a little too much money for them, or they're not quite the spec I'd want, or one or the other. But either way, they're rather difficult to get a hold of, and it's just because they're not the newest thing in the world, and for some reason people just don't seem to have these anymore. They've parted with them, or I think I've really ever seen like maybe 3 or 4 of these in the past 10 years on the field. They're pretty uncommon, which is really interesting because they're really actually quite awesome guns. ICS in a lot of ways has not changed a whole lot over the years. It still has the split version 2 gearbox, and it takes, mostly standard Rarity parts, except for a few small things, so nothing too crazy, but it's still more or less the same design that ICS puts in their guns nowadays. The same hop-up chamber. The barrel unfortunately has changed. I like the brass barrel, and this one has the brass barrel, thankfully. So same old trigger switch, same gears. This one actually has a turbo 2000 motor, so it is an oldie, and I really like it. Not the greatest motor by any means, has a decent amount of torque, way too much overspin. I'll run a 7.4 volt on this, and half the time it is like massively pre-cocked for the next shot, and it's kind of crazy. Not the greatest motors, but still, this gun holds a serious nostalgia factor for me. When I started getting into airsoft about 13-ish years ago, this was the first AEG I ever shot. A friend's cousin of mine over on Whidbey Island here in Washington, they had a couple of these. This is the one with the sliding stock instead of the fixed stock. So I wish I could have gotten a hold of sliding stock. I probably will eventually, just to swap it out and have a completed like nostalgia factor gun for me. But they ran the crap out of theirs. They had a couple of like, I think they were, Sanyo, an old battery company that used to make AEG batteries. They had a couple of NiCad 12-volt batteries they'd run in theirs. And they were handguard wired, so they were just these long AA looking cells. And those things, I don't know how the gun survived. They ran the crap out of them. Every time I went out there to visit, I had just gotten my ICS MP5, and obviously this thing could duke it out with it. It beat the crap out of my MP5, but they just went and went and went continuously on those 12 volts. I mean, the rate of fire was stupid. I mean, back then, 20 rounds a second was amazing. Nowadays, 20 rounds a second, you can do that with a lot of guns at 11.1, no problem. But back then, plug a 12 volt in, and holy crap, I can get 20 rounds a second out of my gun without doing a thing to it and have it last for many, I tell you, many thousands of rounds. It was cool. These things are absurdly durable. I'm really quite amazed. But the biggest thing about this is the Olympic Arms body. The gray one, not the black one, because you can still find those a little more easily. The gray bodies are pretty dang hard to find, unfortunately. So I was really lucky in finding this one. Excellent laser etched trades in these things. Very, they just stand out and they look great. So I love the trades on this, and it's just, it's a beautiful looking gun. I wish they made them like this nowadays. And the bodies are really incredibly solid. Like, there's a little bit of flex just because it's the two-piece design. It kind of reminds me actually of a real AR-15 just because there's a little bit of wobble there, but like, it's so negligible, it doesn't matter. And it was crazy. I'll tell you, I opened this up the other day just to check out the internals. It sounds fantastic. It sounds better than ICS guns nowadays. It's smooth. It's well shimmed. ICS guns are still pretty well shimmed, but this is perfect. It was really quite surprising the quality of work that went into these back in the day. Really well done. I was trying to take off the second to last tooth on the piston. I usually just use a metal file, and 99% of piston nowadays just it eats right through them. The piston on this, I sat there for 20 minutes and it still couldn't get through half the tooth. Just the regular nylon pistons on these things are incredible. And of course the trains, they acknowledge that, because here in Cheney, the trains are nuts. They never quit. Some downsides of the ICS M4 that have plagued these since I think they came out are the dust covers. You flip them. You can tap them practically and they'll just open up. There's not a whole lot keeping them closed there, which is not a big deal. I'm probably gonna run it open anyway, if not just hanging on my wall. A really curious thing though is, obviously, no one's a fan of orange tips. So when I took some paint remover to the orange tip, or the flash hider here, I took it off, I dipped it in, and I figured, oh, it's just gonna be a little layer of orange paint. And it really wasn't a whole lot. It was like maybe 4 or 5 millimeters of paint. It's very little, which is rather nice, instead of those massive honking, covered in thick paint flash hiders nowadays. I took the paint off the orange, and for some reason there was another layer under it. It was like a layer of orange and black and orange, and then it was the original black of the metal. So there were like 3 layers of paint on the flash hider, which is weird. I'm not sure why on earth they did that. But it's just something unusual, something to note, something you're not going to see nowadays. The time put into one of these back in the day. These used to run right around like $300. And I'll tell you, airsoft guns have changed a lot in the last 10 or 12 years. Nowadays, this thing is outdated massively. You can get guns for under $200 that have crazy electronics compared to this. This is as basic as it gets with a mechanical trigger switch. Sure, those still exist, but nowadays, for half the price, you can get a gun that outperforms the heck out of this mechanically and electronically. But these things just run well. The range and accuracy is fantastic, I'll tell you. These guns just hold a really special place in my heart, and I was really happy to find one. They're fun, they're well built, and they're durable. Which is hard to say about some guns, and actually a lot of guns nowadays. They really, things are made so differently now. There's so much out there. We're back when this was the thing. We're talking, you had ICS, Marui, and Classic Army. And this was awesome. I wish I'd bought one of these, because they're just fantastic, and I would have never gotten rid of it. So, this has just been my quick video talking about finding one of these, and how cool it is, and how well built they are, really. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo 23. Maybe look for this on the field in the near future. I'll probably get a sliding stock for it, do some basic tuning on it, probably leave it as stock as possible and just get it running, because they run really well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.